Adam Schefter tweeting out within the last 5 minutes here, the Cardinals have informed Kyler Murray they intend to release him on the first day of the league year next Wednesday, barring a trade between now and then. He gets into the cap nonsense and all that. I don't think it's an intentional. I don't think it's. I do think it's intentional, rather, that in the verbiage here, barring a trade, there's still a chance that Kyler could be traded here, but my interest in Kyler Murray for the Cleveland Browns, which again has always been situational, was based on if he's a free agent. Provided that he actually gets to free agency, then it becomes, what does Kyler Murray really value in his next stop?
Well, and so it's important, though, that, we talk about like some of the cap stuff and everything like that. Because the $36.8 million charge is there, it's going to be like Russell Wilson when he went to the Steelers. So you're going to be paying the minimum in order to get Kyler Murray's services. So like we talked about, like, what's the best picture scenario? You are more likely than not, unless something crazy happens in the next 9 days, you're not going to be paying any trade compensation, and he's going to be playing for the Browns for, I don't know, $1 million. Like you can't get cheaper and you can't get better than what Kyler Murray would be offering up. It's just what do you have to tell him in order to get him here?
Yeah, and I think from Kyler's standpoint, because anywhere he goes that isn't New York, there's going to be, like the Jets, who's going to compete with Kyler there as of right now? Unless they draft Ty Simpson and do the old, the Kirk Cousins where, hey, Kyler, you're our guy. And in the draft, all of a sudden they draft somebody with the weather.
Michael Penix switcheroo.
Which I wouldn't advise, but it's the Jets.
Without the $100 million.
If I'm Kyler and I look at this and go, would I rather compete with a coach, by the way, that's had success with a style of quarterback similar to what I can play in a mobile quarterback or a dual threat quarterback in Todd Monken, and my like competition is washed Deshaun Watson, who's more interested in Instagram videos than maybe playing these days, or Shedeur Sanders, or do I want to go to Minnesota and face against J.J. McCarthy, who's still got some juice there, and try and fit into Kevin O'Connell's offense?
Yeah, is Monken a selling point in this equation? He's not. He's never a selling point versus Kevin O'Connell in many ways. But what Monken did with Lamar Jackson has to appeal to Kyler Murray. Plus the idea that if you signed him, like you're telling him you get to be the starting quarterback.
Yeah, and if I'm Kyler, I think this has been the underreported thing. I know the injuries are a problem there. I know he's a bit of a He's a different guy, right? He's also a little micro machine, right? But if I'm Kyler, I maybe felt a little shoehorned in to an offense, playing in the Kevin Stefanski offense, the Drew Petzing offense. It's not the same offense going to Minnesota, but it is similar principles of what you're going to have to do and being fit into somebody else's box. I do think Todd Monken being able to prove that he can build an offense around Jameis Winston and then Lamar Jackson, two different quarterbacks, I think you can make a selling point there if you're the Browns. And again, I might feel better about beating out Shedeur Sanders, who the Browns have a 5th-round pick invested in, versus a former first-rounder in like Minnesota or even Atlanta where Michael Penix Jr.
I mean, this is much more appetizing to someone like myself than the Malik Willis convo and paying all that money while also committing to Malik Willis for X amount of years. Like, This is, I'm not calling it an ideal scenario, but for the Browns, this would be about as good as it gets if they don't want to see what Shedeur can do next year, and they just want to try to get as many wins as they possibly can and then let the chips fall where they may.
And I think that's where, like, we've almost gotten bogged down in the nuance of the price tag, right? Like, Anthony Richardson for free, sure, I'll do it. Anthony Richardson for a 5th-round pick, not on your damn life. That should be a developmental offensive lineman that 2 years from now might be able to start for the Cleveland Browns. I have no interest in giving it for a quarterback that I think there's about a 1% probability that guy does anything in the NFL, no matter how good his combine still looks 3 years later. But I say that to say, like, if we get to price tag aside, just who are the actual best quarterbacks, not perceptionally best, no, like who are the guys who've done the most that you think you might be able to get out of? The two guys that I think of that make sense are Kyler and Mac Jones. Those are guys with first-round pedigree. They are guys who have ascribed to a certain level, or not ascribed, but have achieved a certain level in the NFL. And perceptionally, they are challenged because of this idea of their value and who they weren't in the NFL. That's the engine that drove Baker Mayfield to Tampa Bay on a 1-year, $6 million prove-it deal. That's the engine.
Yeah, very same thing.
That took Sam Darnold all the way to San Francisco and up to Minnesota on a 1-year, $10 million deal. When we get into, can we find, and again, It's heavy. It's loaded now because Sam Darnold is a Super Bowl winning quarterback. But when we try and find who's the guy with first-round value that people don't look at in that way anymore, Kyler Murray and Mac Jones are the two guys, price aside, whatever you're going to pay to get them, are the guys that make the most sense this offseason. And I think if you get the other things right next year, we could be talking about the Browns in a very competitive situation.
But now you get to throw the price into this, and I think the price becomes a feature, not a bug, when we talk about Kyler Murray. Like, this is an important part of this conversation. Like, if I was in the anything but Shador camp, the way that it feels like some people exist in, you should be screaming about how Kyler Murray is right there, and what do we have to do to get Kyler Murray? Like, again, like the idea that you'd be paying next to nothing to not only acquire him, but the actual price tag within this, like, this is a mega deal, all things considered. I think he's the best quarterback on the market, and he also comes with the best, friendliest version for the Browns as well. Like, that's you can't just let these opportunities go, which is whether or not he wants to come here.
Yeah, and I think that will end up being, like, what does Kyler Murray truly value? Is it the name brand of Kevin O'Connell and what Kevin O'Connell did for Sam Darnold?
With no guarantees, by the way. It would scare the hell out of me if I was Kyler Murray.
And I think that's fair, but he would be able to play and even though he's playing in a cold weather market, and there's a lot of cold weather opponents, you do get half the season in the Dome.
Yeah, that's fair.
Whereas in Cleveland,
kid that grew up in Texas, that does matter.
And I also, here's the other thing. I don't know what Kyler thinks of Deshaun. And I don't mean like personally. I mean like does Kyler think Deshaun has anything left? And I think that's something the Browns would have to answer to, of like, hey, Kyler, just so you know, Deshaun's going to be here. We would rather walk upon glass for 18 weeks than ever actually play him on the field. Mm-hmm. So he'll be here, but he's not going to be here, if that makes sense. I actually think the Deshaun thing might be a bigger hindrance to you signing Kyler Murray than maybe Shador would.
That's interesting. If I was Kyler, I really wouldn't concern myself with Deshaun or Shador. I would enter with the idea that I have assurances this is my job. Like, everything that Todd Monken told us in the past week and a half about this open competition and this being a real battle and everyone's going to get a chance, that would just go out the window. Like, Kyler Murray would be coming here with the assurances he's the week one guy, and that's kind of case closed.
Well, and to build on the idea of the baked-in value of Kyler, I think the guy who was, again, anywhere from 25 to 30 touchdowns combined between rushing and passing, and within 12 turnovers or less a year, which is what you got for most of the Kyler experience when he's been healthy, I think that guy is in there. And I think if you take a one-year Russell Wilson-type deal for Kyler this year, I think that allows you to then put your full resources into building the offensive line and maybe making a run at another decent wide receiver. And I do think that's how, like, do I think that you can get this offense to be a top 10 offense next year? No, I don't. There's just not the resources out there. There's not the right mix of prospects and free agents and all that. Do I think if that defense can still be 90% of what it was last year, and this offense is the 14th best offense in the NFL, do I think that gives you a chance to be really interesting, more interesting than people realize in Todd Monken's first year? Absolutely. And that really is. I said it to start the show. The crux of this, and I think if it's in Todd Monken's best interest to win as many games as he can this year. It just is.
Well, then Kyler is the answer. If that's their reality, Kyler is the answer because he's going to give you the best chance to win as many games as possible. Now, again, he's never won a playoff game in his career, but I can argue he's never had a defense the way that this Browns defense is either, and like that's a big component to all of this. By the way, I did look up. He's actually thrived in cold weather games. Oddly enough, he's not played in a million 45-degree and under games, but he's played in a handful, and he's got a 103.5 passer rating, 8 touchdowns and 2 interceptions. In a weird twist, Kyler Murray is actually not bad in cold weather.
He's still an itty-bitty quarterback.
That part's not going away.
And I do think, like, because of his size and because of his style, I think there's a limitation here. Of course there is. There's no quarterback that you could get this offseason that doesn't have some sort of a limitation. But this is about risk management, and it's about giving. Listen, I really do. The one thing I feel most passionate about is anybody that goes out there this year for the Browns that is putting their necks, their knees, their life on the line, and that's a little heavy-handed with the life on the line, but certainly putting their physical well-being on the line. Mm-hmm. I don't want to lie to them again. I don't think you really gave them a chance between Kenny Pickett, Joe Flacco, and the rookies last year. I don't. And I don't want to do that again. Like, football is a brutal sport, and there's a lot of guys in that room that deserve the chance to compete. I think Kyler Murray gives you a chance to compete, depending on what happens with Mac Jones in San Francisco. I think Mac Jones gives you a chance to compete. All the other guys that we've talked about to some degree or another, I look at and go, well, I don't really like the probability's so low with those guys. Like Kyler, I think, is a decent probability player of working out. Mac Jones, I think, is a decent probability of working out type player. Everybody else, I look at Malik Willis and I'm like, that's a 15% chance he's actually lives up to that deal.
Yeah, for sure. If we're just weighing the pros and the cons of it all, Kyler brings a lot more pros to the table. And again, now he's on like the friendliest of friendliest deals in order to get him here. And it's just the idea you have to convince him that Monken's going to be able to bring something out of him that these other places can't.
Short and sweet on Twitter saying, the Browns are about to bleep this all up once again. Like, stop being greedy and back one of the guys you already have. You're only showing that you don't know what you're doing. Show some loyalty and confidence in these guys, and maybe you'll get better play. I don't know why Deshaun or Shador, to this point, deserves your absolute looking at the rest of the market and going, under no circumstance am I going to bring another quality quarterback in.
I just don't understand the loyalty line. It's the NFL. You don't have to have loyalty to anybody. Like the whole job is to try to get the best team you possibly can at any cost. You don't have to worry about loyalty.
Also, this is a numbers game. Like, the one way in which this quarterback room will be similar to last year, it's going to be, all right, you've got 3 lottery tickets. Will one of them scratch off and you maybe get $10 if you spend $1?
Mm-hmm, yeah. I also look at it like Kyler's coming off this major injury that he had that kept him out for last season. If he gets injured again, you still have to have pieces and parts, and whether it's Shador or Deshaun, somebody there in order to basically catch them when they fall. But the season with Kyler, if he can play all 17, I mean, it gives you the best chance to win the most amount of games. It's just whether or not you want to do that for the 2027 draft. That's the question the Browns have to ask themselves, and I would bet they do.
And it is, can you get the B version of we've gotten the C or worse version of Kyler the last 2 years because of injuries and other factors. Can you get the B or better version of Kyler? And that's about context. Well, the reason why the context doesn't make sense with Ty Simpson is you're taking away one of your limited resources to make the context around Ty Simpson work, and then you're playing the time game. Well, Kyler will be ready to go. He's a 7-year vet.
Yeah.
And again, he doesn't cost a draft pick, at least unless a trade materializes from somebody, and he doesn't really cost a whole lot of cap space as well.
I can make an argument 2 years ago was actually not a bad year for Kyler by any stretch. It was actually one of his better years in more recent accounting. It was better than his 2022 and his 2023. So, just as recently as 2 years ago, I think it was 9th in QBR when it was all said and done, which is not a metric I like to use, but just something to tell you he didn't flat out suck.